What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from ActTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic. And today, I'm going to attempt to talk about We Will Dance Again. This is a documentary that's available on Paramount Plus, and it does have audio description. And for my blind audience, I have my purple baseball cap on backwards, black sunglasses, and I'm wearing, I think, a Wakanda Forever shirt. Definitely a Black Panther shirt, but I think it says Wakanda Forever on it. Anyway, how to talk about this film? What is it, first of all? It is a film that explores through very interesting ways of acquiring footage. It explores the October 7th deadly terrorist attack on a music festival in Israel that cost many lives and still continues to cost lives today, as people who were there are not able to continue to cope with the experience that they went through and have been and have taken their own lives since the event. It sits down and it interviews survivors. It has a lot of actual camera footage of what went on. We get a violence warning, sort of like a trigger warning up at the top, to let people know that the footage is extremely graphic, and it's shot from people's cell phones. They seem to have gotten body cam footage from Hamas soldiers. I don't know why Hamas soldiers are wearing body cams. Like, we can't even get our own American cops to turn on body cams. Why are Hamas soldiers wearing body cams? Anyway, so weird. But I heard that mentioned once, and I was like, why are they wearing body cams? Do they go back later on and somebody in Hamas is like, oh, well, we're going to have to reprimand you for that. That's not the way we do things here at Hamas. But it's very, anyway, I guess to document maybe like watching back the atrocity, play by play, like, oh, look, that was a great job that you did there. And I have no idea why there were body cams. That would have been such an interesting note. Like, why are you wearing a body cam? Anyway, so yeah, it sets up, it tells you what the festival is. It tells you like the kind of people who were there. They come from all over. Like, there are festivals like this, like all over the world. And there are people who travel from all over the world to come to festivals like this. So it wasn't just like a whole bunch of Israeli people. It also wasn't a whole bunch of Jews. Like there were like Arabs and stuff there too. Like, there were people who aren't Israeli or Palestinian, like just hanging out at the festival. People who came from, Europe or wherever. There's one lady who mentions that she went to something like this in Brazil. It's just sort of like one of those festivals that sometimes you bounce around to, which is how a lot of music festivals are. Even in America, they're not for people who just live there. We have people that bounce around, and we have people who travel. If you think about film festivals too, just from a film critic perspective, we have tons of people who go to film festivals. It would be like if something happened at Cannes, you'd be like, well, those poor French people. And you'd be like, well, there's a lot more than French people in Cannes, So yeah, it's, it just gets, the movie just keeps getting darker and worse, and things keep happening, and it's just a complete failure. It's hard to say that I loved anything about this. What I appreciate about the documentary, because love is the wrong word, because people died in order to make this happen. So it's like, how do you solve a problem like Maria? It's like, how do you review this film? It's sort of, I felt the same way about 20 Days of Mariupol. I was like, I don't know what to do with this, because what it's saying and what it's paying tribute to is so much bigger than the film itself. It's so much bigger than this review. Like, this is nothing. This is just me just trying to tell you to watch the film and to experience this if you're able to. 20 Days of Mariupol was incredibly harrowing, and this is incredibly harrowing too, and very sobering to sit through. It's a tough watch. I would think that if this is Oscar eligible at all, it'll at least make the short list. I don't know how it doesn't make a short list. So it worked effectively, but it also calls out the Israeli force for failing to respond. And there are multiple times where they interview people who are trying to call in and trying to call for help, and people are like, "What? What? I don't understand. What are you talking about? What? Where? There's a terrorist attack? Huh? I don't understand." Like, and so they can't even get a proper response in a quick period of time. So Hamas just kind of surprise steamrolls Israeli forces here and just the general civilian population. And every time somebody tries to call the Israeli equivalent of 911 is just like, what are you trying to tell me? This makes no sense. It's like, well, I don't know. Why didn't you send somebody to check it out? Anyway. So there's actually, I guess, sort of spoiler alert, but there's actually a group of survivors that are suing Israel for their response, which I think is really interesting because we think of this whole war now between Israel and Palestine, or Israel and Lebanon, and like just this Middle East shittery that's happening. And these are the people who this catalyst sort of happened, and they're straight up suing Israel for failing to respond. Not in kind like they're doing now, where they're just bombing the shit out of everything, but to their actual event. Like, they could have actually been there earlier. It actually talks about the failed response time of that. It's sort of like, I'm sure we'll eventually get to, somebody will make a documentary on Uvalde, and we'll have to sit there and watch those 30 police officers standing in the hallway for an hour and a half. It's like, the fuck are you doing? What are you doing there? Like, what are you doing there? There are 30 of you. Even if you guys posted up in different locations, you guys should be able to completely, fully surround him. There's so many of you. What are you all standing in a hallway for this long? Are you guys that incompetent? Like, it feels like that. Like, the rage that we had as Americans at conceptually understanding that there are that many police officers standing in the hallway. And I think one of them was actually like a father or something like that, and they fired him or something, or got him off the line because he was threatening he was going to go in just regardless. He was like, "What the fuck are we doing here?" I've heard him interviewed before. So yeah, it's sort of like that, because you keep hearing these people and they're like, we keep calling and nobody takes us seriously. We keep trying to call and be like, we're being shot at, people are dead, come help us. And they keep waiting for a response, and it takes forever. And these guys, I mean, they're hopping in cars, like clown cars. They got people who are hanging on to windows and the roof of a car to try to drive out of the situation. But Hamas is I mean, they've got roadblocks set up, and I mean, they're just far more prepared for this than anything we see here. And it does beg the question, how did Israel fail them so badly? Because I can't see something like this happening here, and at least not a local police being like, what? what's happening? I mean, I don't know where you could be possibly that nobody would notice this scale of an attack. This is different than one of those kids with a gun walking into a school or somebody walking into a nightclub. You know, this is like a militant force, armed to the teeth, uh, wiping out a large chunk of people. And it's gut-wrenching to hear the survivors talk about. And the blame is not, they don't sit there and talk about like, we hate the Palestinians or we hate Arab people or we hate, you know what I'm saying? Like what I found was so interesting about this is that if anything, they're more mad at Israel than they are anything else, but that's been lost in the narrative. And I'm not trying to take like a stance here, like a pro-Israel, pro-Palestine stance, but that is the stance of the film. That is the stance of these people, is that they're like, we tried calling you for help multiple times. You could have been here earlier. You could have stopped something earlier if you had taken any of the calls seriously, anybody who was actually able to get through. So I hope they win their lawsuit. I do. I think for the survivors who went through this, for the people who have sustained injuries and survived, I hope they win, because this presents a very excellent case for a failure on Israel's part to respond to a terrorist attack on their own turf. Like, what happened? You know, I feel like there should be a follow-up documentary to this that explores what happened. Why was there a delayed response? Like, what? Because that's what these people are asking is, did all of these people need to die so you could fuck around and take a lifetime to get here, you know? I don't want to necessarily ruin all the stories, but they're fucking harrowing. Some of these stories and some of these moments, and they're chilling. This was one hell of a documentary to hear. And it's kind of appropriate. This is on Paramount Plus. They've been really good about airing in some form like representative documentaries for other mass shootings. They have a little docu-series that was on the Las Vegas mass shooting. 10 minutes, I believe is what it's called. And MTV, I know, followed some of the survivors of the Pulse attack in Orlando for a little thing, which is also, it's Paramount. It's, you know, it's a subsidiary. So this wouldn't be the first time that they've had something like this on here. But I do hope it's eligible for Oscar consideration, because I was deeply moved by this film. And not even in a way where I want to have like a deep conversation about like, what are we doing in the Middle East? What are we bombing the fuck out of these people for? You know, why can't we get a ceasefire? Because my only thought in that would be, after watching this, it does kind of feel like, you know, that you're trying to get the blame off of yourself when you feel like there's something that you could have done, and then you realize you should have done it. And so then you are sort of irrationally putting a lot of the blame off of yourself without taking any sort of personal accountability for it. That is, I would say, what is strongly suggested here. If there's anything to take away from this, if you're trying to apply it to well, does this documentary suggest we should stop bombing the shit out of Palestine? It might suggest that the reason we're bombing the shit out of Palestine is because they didn't respond before. So the leadership in Israel has no idea what personal accountability is. So instead of apologizing to the survivors of this event, they decided to be like, well, never again, you know? uh, I guess is the thought process behind that, the connective tissue, perhaps. But it's not my region, and I'm not a, a world politics expert. As much as I've listened to in the news and politics, that's about as far as I can go with that. I'm a blind film critic on YouTube. If you came here for world politics, you came to the wrong channel. I came here to talk to you about this film that's on Paramount Plus, which has audio description. I'm not super happy about the audio description. I kind of wish Paramount had spent a little bit more money on it. But to be fair, I think 20 Days of Mariupol had a similar problem because it was just like PBS. So I think they had like a really basic thing, but they have one narrator. So it's like this one voice that's doing doing the work and translating. It's a shame because then like all the females all sound like they're the same female character. I kind of wish we had more, voices to be able to bounce back and forth, but it what it signals to me is Paramount isn't that super into audio description, first of all. Sort of like externally outside of America, and this is something that I've talked about with some other people who live outside of America. It's really the equivalent that they get of Paramount Plus is very lacking in audio description. There are shows that Paramount has recorded audio description for that they don't even air the audio description. I mean, doesn't even conceptually. I don't even understand that, but they have Showtime programming that has audio description recorded that they're not airing. They just dropped same day already. I wouldn't say the same day, but 2 days later they dropped Colin from Accounts season 2. They didn't bother to audio describe it, but season 1's audio described. So I'm not going to say that they're a beacon for excellence in audio description. A lot of the stuff that they get when it is excellence in audio description typically comes from CBS. But here, it worries me because then I think about like, this is the kind of film that should have awards consideration, but it feels like it's going to be like forgotten and left behind in the grand scheme, because it's like, if you're not willing to invest here, then if there isn't a grassroots movement, if people don't grab onto you and sort of charge forward with you like they did with 20 Days of Mariupol, I don't know how you get to that kind of level of praise, which is why I'm doing a review for it, because I think people need to know this is this year's 20 Days of Mariupol. This is the film that will give you an absolute visceral reaction, and you won't be able to look away. So, yeah, it's a fantastic film. Using words like favorite, I have a problem. It's the same thing I did with like 20 Days of Mariupol. It's like, great movie, I never need to see it again. So saying this is my favorite film, favorite documentary of the year, favorite is such a strong word in that way, because favorite includes, people died for this to happen. I think it is the best documentary I've seen this year, though, for sure. So I do have high hopes, and I'm rooting for it to get whatever kind of consideration it's eligible for. If this is going to be an Emmy thing, please let it be an Emmy thing. If it's going to be an Oscar thing, please let it be an Oscar thing. But whichever it is, I found this to be incredibly thought-provoking, and just one hell of a story. So I'm going to give We Will Dance Again an A, unequivocally, because yes, it deserves it. And that's it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I will see you guys on the other side.